The bullet grazed her shoulder as Molly Warren threw herself behind the overturned wagon, her breath coming in ragged gasps that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with the rage burning through her veins. Independence, Missouri in the spring of 1875 was supposed to be her fresh start, not another battlefield where men decided her fate without asking permission. She pressed her hand against the splintered wood, feeling the familiar numbness creep through her chest, the same emptiness that had hollowed her out 3 years ago when everything she loved turned to ash. The shooting stopped as quickly as it started. Molly peered around the wagon wheel to see her pursuers retreating down the dusty street, their laughter carrying on the wind like poison. She recognized them from the saloon where she worked serving tables, men who thought a woman alone was an invitation rather than a person. Her fingers trembled as she checked the graze on her shoulder, barely a scratch, but the violation of it made her stomach turn. "Miss, you hurt." The voice came from behind her, deep and steady like river stones worn smooth by time. Molly spun around, her hand instinctively reaching for the small knife she kept in her boot. A man stood there, tall and broad-shouldered, with dust coating his worn leather vest and chaps. His hat shadowed his face, but she could see concern etched in the lines around his eyes. He held his hands up, palms out, showing he meant no harm. "I can handle myself," Molly said, her voice sharper than she intended. She pushed herself up from the ground, ignoring the way her legs shook. "I can see that," the cowboy said, and there was no mockery in his tone. "But handling yourself and accepting help are not opposite things." Molly studied him more carefully. He was younger than she first thought, maybe 25 or 26, only a few years older than her own 23 years. His face was honest, weathered by sun and wind but not hardened by cruelty. She had learned to spot the difference. "They will come back," she said finally, brushing dirt from her worn calico dress. "They always do. Not if someone makes it clear you are not alone." He stepped closer, and Molly noticed he moved carefully, telegraphing his intentions. "Name is Cole Zimmerman. I run cattle through here twice a year, but I grew up in these parts. Those men, I recognize them. They work for Samuel Hastings." The name made Molly's jaw tighten. Hastings owned half the businesses in Independence, including the saloon where she barely scraped together enough wages to rent a room above the general store. He had been pressuring her for weeks to work upstairs instead of downstairs, to entertain men in ways that made her skin crawl. "Then you know I cannot fight them," Molly said quietly. "Not really." Cole tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable, but instead made her feel seen. "You have been fighting something for a long time, have not you?" The question caught her off guard. Molly opened her mouth to deflect, to throw up the walls she had built so carefully, but something in his gaze stopped her. It was not pity she saw there, not the curiosity of someone drawn to tragedy like moths to flame. It was recognition, as if he understood what it meant to carry weight invisible to the world. "We should get you somewhere safe," Cole said when she did not answer. "Do you have people here? Family?" "No." The word came out harder than she intended. "No family, not anymore." Cole nodded slowly, as if she had confirmed something he suspected. "The boarding house on Maple Street, Mrs. Henderson runs it. She is good people, does not ask too many questions, and Hastings has no hold over her. I will walk you there if you will let me." Molly wanted to refuse. She had learned the hard way that accepting help from men came with prices she could not afford to pay. But the sun was setting, painting the Missouri sky in shades of amber and rose, and she knew those men would be drinking themselves brave for another attempt. Sometimes survival meant swallowing pride. "All right," she said, "but just to the boarding house." They walked in silence through the bustling streets of Independence. The town was alive with the chaos of westward expansion. Wagon trains forming up for the journey along the Oregon and California trails, merchants hawking supplies, families making final preparations for journeys that would change their lives forever. Molly had arrived here 6 months ago with nothing but the clothes on her back and nightmares she could not outrun. She had hoped the constant motion of the town would help her disappear, but instead it had left her feeling more exposed than ever. "You are not from Missouri," Cole said as they turned onto a quieter street lined with modest houses. "What gave me away?" Molly asked, surprised to find a hint of humor in her voice. "Your accent. Kentucky maybe, or Tennessee." "Kentucky," Molly admitted. "Lexington. A lifetime ago." Cole did not press for more, and Molly felt grateful for that. They reached the boarding house, a 2-story structure with a wraparound porch and flowers blooming in window boxes. It looked like the kind of place where people built lives instead of just surviving them. Mrs. Henderson answered the door, a round-faced woman in her 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She looked from Molly to Cole and back again, taking in the torn sleeve and dirt-stained dress. "Hastings men?" she asked simply. "Yes, madam," Cole replied. "Miss Warren here needs a room, somewhere safe." Mrs. Henderson's expression hardened. "I have a room. Had a family pull out of their wagon train this morning, decided to go back east. It is already paid for through the end of the month." She looked directly at Molly. "I do not tolerate trouble, but I also do not tolerate men who think they can push women around. You are welcome here, long as you need." Molly felt something crack in her chest, a small fissure in the armor she wore constantly. "I can work," she said quickly. "I can cook, clean, do laundry. I will not take charity." "Did not offer charity," Mrs. Henderson said briskly. "Offered a room. If you want to work for your keep, I have got plenty that needs doing. But you eat first. You look half-starved." Before Molly could protest, she found herself ushered inside, Cole following at Mrs. Henderson's insistence. The boarding house smelled of bread and coffee, of normalcy that Molly had almost forgotten existed. The other boarders looked up as they entered a young couple heading west, an older prospector with kind eyes, a schoolteacher who nodded politely. Mrs. Henderson set food in front of them, hearty stew and fresh bread, and Molly ate mechanically, aware of Cole sitting across from her. He ate quietly, occasionally glancing her way but not staring. It was strange, being in the presence of someone who did not seem to want anything from her. "Tell me about the cattle drives," Molly said finally, needing to fill the silence with something other than her own thoughts. Cole looked up, surprised. "Not much to tell. I work for the Rocking Z Ranch about 50 miles south. We drive cattle north twice a year, sell them to buyers heading further west or back east on the rails." "Do you like it? The work?" He considered the question seriously. "I like the open space, the honest work. You know where you stand with cattle. They are predictable in their unpredictability." He paused, a shadow crossing his face. "I like that it is just me and the land and the herd. No complicated politics, no games." "That sounds peaceful," Molly said softly. "It can be lonely," Cole admitted. "But I have always found being alone easier than being around people who do not understand." Molly met his eyes and something passed between them, an unspoken acknowledgement. "Yes," she said. "I know exactly what you mean." After the meal, Cole stood to leave. "I will be in town for a few days," he said. "The crew and I are taking a break before heading north. If you need anything, we are camped just outside town near the river." "Why are you helping me?" Molly asked suddenly. "You do not know me. You do not owe me anything." Cole studied her for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. "My mother," he said finally. She was alone once when my father died. People in our town, they helped her when they did not have to. She used to say that kindness is not about owing. It is about recognizing when someone needs a hand and having the courage to extend it. He settled his hat on his head. Besides, something tells me you would do the same for someone else if positions were reversed. He was gone before Molly could respond, leaving her standing in the warm boarding house with tears threatening to fall for the first time in 3 years. Mrs. Henderson showed Molly to her room, a small but clean space with a window overlooking the street. "That Cole Zimmerman is good people," she said. "Known him since he was a boy. His family ranch is solid, built on honest work. His father died when he was 16, threw him into running things early. Made him grow up fast, but it did not make him hard, not like some. I am not looking for—" Molly started, but Mrs. Henderson waved her off. "Did not say you were, just stating facts." She paused at the door. "But I will say this, whatever you are running from, whatever put that look in your eyes, you cannot run forever. Sooner or later, you have to decide if you are going to let the past bury you or if you are going to start digging yourself out." Alone in her room, Molly sat on the edge of the bed and let herself feel the weight of the day. Her shoulder throbbed where the bullet had grazed it, but that pain was nothing compared to the ache that lived permanently in her chest. She touched the spot absently, as if she could reach through skin and bone to the scars that nobody could see. 3 years ago, she had been Molly Mee Warren, daughter of a respected horse breeder in Lexington, engaged to a man she thought she loved. Then the fire came, set deliberately by competitors who wanted her father's land. She had watched her parents die, trapped in the burning stable as she was held back by neighbors. Her fiancé, Thomas, had survived but blamed her for not saving them, as if her grief was not punishment enough. He had called off the engagement publicly, telling anyone who would listen that she was cursed. That tragedy followed her like a shadow. Molly had stayed long enough to bury her parents and sell what remained of their land, then disappeared into the churning mass of people heading west. She thought distance would quiet the screams she still heard in her sleep, the smell of smoke that haunted her waking hours. Instead, she found that trauma was portable, that you could travel thousands of miles and still carry the weight of the past in every step. Sleep came fitfully that night, punctuated by dreams of fire and the sound of her mother's voice calling her name. She woke before dawn, disoriented until she remembered where she was. The boarding house was quiet, the world outside still dark. Molly dressed in her spare dress, the better of her 2 worn options, and went downstairs to find Mrs. Henderson already in the kitchen. "You are up early," the older woman said, not unkindly. "I am used to it. The saloon wanted me there before sunrise to start cleaning." Molly rolled up her sleeves. "What can I do to help?" They worked together in comfortable silence, Mrs. Henderson directing tasks with the efficiency of someone who had been running a household for decades. Molly found solace in the routine, the familiar rhythm of kneading bread dough, the meditative quality of peeling potatoes. It reminded her of mornings with her mother, before everything burned away. The other boarders came down for breakfast gradually, and Molly helped serve, aware of curious glances but grateful that Mrs. Henderson had clearly established her as help rather than a topic for gossip. She was clearing plates when the door opened and Cole walked in, his hat in his hands. "Mrs. Henderson," he said politely. "I was hoping I could speak with Miss Warren if she has a moment." Molly felt her stomach tighten with anxiety, the automatic response to any request from a man, but Mrs. Henderson just nodded approvingly. "Go on, dear. You have earned a break." They walked out onto the porch, the morning sun already promising heat. Independence was waking up, the streets filling with the daily chaos of a frontier town that served as the jumping-off point for thousands of dreams. "I wanted to check on you," Cole said. "Make sure you were settled." "I am," Molly said. "Mrs. Henderson has been very kind." Cole nodded, then seemed to gather his courage. "I also wanted to ask, would you like to walk with me? I have some business at the general store, and I thought you might like to get out for a bit. Mrs. Henderson mentioned you have been working since dawn." Molly hesitated. Every instinct told her to refuse, to keep the walls up, to not let anyone get close enough to see the damaged goods underneath. But something about Cole's steady presence, his lack of presumption, made her want to take the risk. "All right," she said, "but I need to tell Mrs. Henderson." They walked through Independence as the town came fully alive. Cole pointed out changes since his last visit, new businesses opening up, families he knew who had settled rather than continuing west. He talked easily but not excessively, comfortable with silence in a way that Molly appreciated. "How long have you been working cattle?" she asked as they browsed the general store. "Since I was old enough to sit a horse. My father started the ranch with nothing, built it up over 20 years. When he died, I thought I would lose it all. I was 16, thought I knew everything, actually knew nothing." He picked up a sack of flour, testing the weight. "But the hands stayed on, taught me what I needed to know. We have 2,500 head now, good breeding stock. It is not the biggest operation, but it is mine." "That must feel good," Molly said. "Having something that is yours, that you built." "It does," Cole agreed, "but it can also feel heavy. Sometimes I think about what it would be like to just ride off, no responsibilities, no one depending on me." "Would you really want that?" Molly asked. "From what I have seen, you are not the kind of man who runs from responsibility." Cole looked at her with surprise, then a slow smile. "You see clearly, don't you? Most people look at a cowboy and see someone simple, uncomplicated, but you see past that." "Maybe I recognize a fellow survivor," Molly said quietly. They paid for Cole's supplies and walked toward the river where his crew was camped. The Missouri flowed broad and muddy, carrying the promise of everything that lay beyond the next bend. Molly could see bedrolls and a campfire, horses grazing nearby. A few men moved around the camp, but Cole led her slightly away to a spot beneath a cottonwood tree. "Can I ask you something?" he said, and Molly tensed. "You do not have to answer if you do not want to." "What is it?" "Earlier, you said you have no family. But it is more than that, is not it? Something happened, something that still hurts." Molly looked out at the river, watching the water flow endlessly onward. She had not talked about the fire with anyone, had built her life around avoiding the topic entirely. But standing here with Cole, she found the words rising up despite herself. "There was a fire," she said softly, 3 years ago. My parents died. I could not save them. My fiancé blamed me, the whole town blamed me. They said I was cursed, that I brought tragedy, so I left." Cole was quiet for a long moment. "Do you believe that you are cursed?" "I do not know what I believe anymore," Molly admitted. "I just know that I carry something heavy inside me, something broken that will not mend. People can sense it, even when I try to hide it. They look at me and know something is wrong. I have scars you cannot see," she whispered, the words escaping before she could stop them. "Places inside me that burned away that night and never grew back. How do you love someone like that? Someone who is more scar tissue than whole person?" Cole turned her gently to face him, his hands on her shoulders, careful and respectful. His eyes were serious, intense in a way that made Molly's breath catch. "Then I'll love what others missed," he said firmly. "Because those scars you are talking about, they are not weakness. They are proof you survived. They are proof you kept going when you had every reason to quit. And anyone who cannot see that, anyone who cannot look past their own narrow understanding of what a person should be, They are the ones who are broken, not you. Molly felt tears spill over, the first she had cried since leaving Kentucky. You do not know me. You do not know what I am really like. No, I do not, Cole agreed. But I know what I see. I see a woman who got shot at yesterday and did not fall apart. I see someone who wakes up before dawn to work even though she does not have to, who asks questions about other people instead of just talking about herself. I see someone strong enough to carry grief and keep walking. He paused, his voice softening. I see someone I would very much like to know better if you will let me. Why? Molly asked helplessly. There are plenty of women who are not broken. Why would you want someone like me? Because I am not looking for someone perfect, Cole said. I am looking for someone real. Someone who understands that life is hard and messy and painful, but you get up anyway. Someone who knows what it means to lose everything and still find the courage to try again. His thumb brushed away her tears with unexpected gentleness. I am looking for someone exactly like you. Molly did not know who moved first, but suddenly she was in his arms, her face pressed against his chest as 3 years of holding everything together finally broke apart. Cole held her securely, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other steady on her back. He did not tell her to stop crying or that everything would be okay. He just held her and let her feel what she had been running from. When the storm finally passed, Molly pulled back, embarrassed. I am sorry. I should not have. Do not apologize for being human, Cole said. We all break sometimes. It is how we heal. They spent the rest of the morning by the river. Cole introduced her to his crew. 4 men ranging from a grizzled veteran in his 50s to a kid barely 18 who looked at Molly with shy admiration. They treated her with respect, following Cole's lead, and Molly found herself relaxing in a way she had not in months. Boss talks about you, the youngest one, Jimmy, said while Cole was checking on the horses. Says you are different from other town women. Jimmy, stop bothering Miss Warren, the older cowboy whose name was Red said with a laugh. Boy has no sense of propriety. It is all right, Molly said, surprised to find she meant it. How long have you all worked for Cole? I have been with the Rocking Z for 15 years, Red said. Watched Cole grow from a kid trailing his father to the man running the whole operation. He is good people, treats his hands fair, always keeps his word. He cares about that ranch more than anything, Jimmy added. Works himself near to death sometimes, trying to keep it all running. Molly filed that information away, understanding a bit more about the man who had stepped into her life so unexpectedly. Cole worked hard because he had something to prove, because he was still that 16-year-old kid trying to fill his father's boots. She recognized the impulse, the need to push yourself until exhaustion drowned out everything else. They ate lunch at the camp, simple fare of beans and cornbread that tasted better than it had any right to. Cole sat beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. The crew told stories about cattle drives, about storms and river crossings and the endless nights under stars. Molly found herself laughing, genuinely laughing, for the first time in recent memory. You should come out to the ranch, Cole said as he walked her back to the boarding house that afternoon. See the operation, meet the people who make it work. We are not fancy, but it is beautiful country. I would like that, Molly said, then paused. But Cole, I need you to understand something. I am not whole. I do not know if I will ever be whole again. I have nightmares. Some days I can barely get out of bed. I am not sure I know how to be the kind of woman a man like you should have. Cole stopped walking, turning to face her fully. Molly, I am not asking you to be anything except yourself. I am not asking for promises or commitments. I am just asking if you will let me be around, let me be someone you can count on. Whatever that looks like, whatever pace feels right, I am willing to work with that. Why? Molly asked again, still unable to fully believe his sincerity. Because in the last 24 hours, I have felt more connected to another human being than I have in the last 5 years, Cole said honestly. Because when I look at you, I see someone who makes me want to be better, to do better. Because I think maybe we both have been alone for too long and maybe we do not have to be anymore. Molly reached out tentatively and took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong. I am scared, she admitted. Me too, Cole said, but maybe that is okay. Maybe scared is where you start, and then you just take it one day at a time. Over the next 3 days, Molly saw Cole every day. He would come by the boarding house in the morning and they would walk through Independence together, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about growing up on the ranch, about his father's death and the struggle to keep everything together. She told him about Kentucky, about her parents and the horses they bred, about the life she had lost. She still had not told him about Thomas, about the engagement and the public humiliation. Some wounds were still too raw, too shameful. But she shared pieces of herself she had thought she would never share with anyone again, and Cole received them with a gentleness that made her ache. On the 3rd evening, they sat on the boarding house porch watching the sunset paint the sky. Mrs. Henderson had tactfully given them privacy, and the street was quiet in the cooling air. We leave tomorrow, Cole said quietly. Have to get the herd moving north. Molly felt her stomach drop. She had known this was coming, but somehow she had let herself forget the temporary nature of his presence. How long will you be gone? 3 weeks, maybe 4. Depends on weather and how the cattle cooperate. He turned to look at her. But I will be back. And when I come back, I want to take you to the ranch if you are still willing. I will be here, Molly said. I am not going anywhere. Molly, Cole said, his voice serious. I know 3 days is not enough time to really know someone. But I want you to know that these days they have mattered to me. You matter to me. You matter to me too, Molly whispered. That scares me more than anything. Why? Because I have lost everyone I ever cared about, my parents, my home, my whole life. What if I lose you too? Cole reached out and cupped her face in his hands. You will not lose me. I am not going anywhere. And when I come back, we are going to take this thing between us and see where it goes one day at a time. No rushing, no pressure. Just you and me figuring it out together. He kissed her then, soft and careful, asking rather than taking. Molly kissed him back, feeling something dormant inside her flicker to life. It was not the wild passion she had felt with Thomas, all heat and no substance. This was deeper, rooted in understanding and respect, in being truly seen. When they pulled apart, Molly rested her forehead against his. Come back safe, she said. Always, Cole promised. She watched him ride out the next morning, the crew moving the cattle herd north in a river of horns and hooves and dust. Cole looked back once, raising his hand in farewell, and Molly stood on the porch until they disappeared from view. The days that followed were strange. Molly threw herself into work at the boarding house, helping Mrs. Henderson with everything from cooking to laundry to mending. The older woman watched her with knowing eyes but said nothing, just gave her tasks that kept her hands busy if not her mind. But the nights were harder. Alone in her room, Molly found herself thinking about Cole constantly. She replayed their conversations, analyzed his words, tried to convince herself that his interest was real and not some elaborate fantasy she had constructed. The old fears crept in that she was too damaged, that he would realize his mistake, that tragedy would strike again and destroy this fragile hope. 2 weeks after Cole left, Molly was at the general store when she overheard women talking. She recognized them from church, respectable wives with their carefully maintained positions in society. Did you hear about Molly Warren? One said, her voice pitched just loud enough to carry. Apparently, she has been throwing herself at Cole Zimmerman. Poor man probably feels obligated to be nice to her. I heard she was engaged back east, but her fiancé called it off when her family died," another added. "There must have been something wrong with her. Men do not just abandon women for no reason." Molly felt the familiar shame wash over her, the same feeling she had experienced in Lexington when Thomas had publicly denounced her. She wanted to run, to hide, to disappear. Instead, she found herself walking directly up to the women, her hands shaking but her voice steady. "You are right," she said clearly. "My fiancé did call off our engagement after my parents died in a fire. He said I was cursed, that I should have died with them." "Is that the story you wanted to hear?" The women stared at her, shocked by her directness. "And yes, I have been spending time with Cole Zimmerman. He has been kind to me, which is apparently such a foreign concept to people like you that you have to turn it into gossip. But here is what you do not know: I do have scars, deep ones, the kind that do not heal nice and neat." And Cole looks at those scars and sees strength instead of weakness. So maybe the problem is not with me or with him. Maybe the problem is with people who cannot imagine showing compassion without expecting something in return. She walked out of the store with her head high, her purchases forgotten. Only when she reached the privacy of her room did she let herself shake. She had never confronted gossip before, had always just run. But something had changed. Cole's words had taken root, made her see herself differently. Mrs. Henderson knocked on her door an hour later. "I heard what happened at the store," she said. "The whole town is talking about it." "I am sorry," Molly said automatically. "I should not have made a scene." "Sorry." "Child, I have been waiting for someone to put those hens in their place for years. You did nothing wrong." Mrs. Henderson sat on the edge of the bed. "But I want you to understand something. Small towns, they have long memories. You just made yourself visible in a way you have not been before. Some people will respect you for standing up for yourself. Others will use it as ammunition." "I know," Molly said quietly, "but I am tired of being ashamed of things that were not my fault. I am tired of letting other people define me." "Good," Mrs. Henderson said firmly. "That is exactly the right attitude. And when Cole gets back, you hold your head high. You have nothing to be ashamed of." But Cole did not come back in 3 weeks. 4 weeks passed, then 5. Molly tried not to worry, tried to tell herself that cattle drives were unpredictable. But the old fears whispered that he had changed his mind, that he had realized she was too much trouble, too complicated. She was helping Mrs. Henderson prepare dinner when the knock came on the boarding house door. A young cowboy stood there, hat in hands, looking worried. "I am looking for Miss Molly Warren," he said. "I have a message from Cole Zimmerman." Molly's heart stopped. "What is it? What happened?" "There was an accident during the drive. Stampede spooked by lightning. Cole got caught trying to turn the herd. His leg got broken pretty bad. We got him to a doctor in Abilene, but he is asking for you." The world tilted. Molly gripped the doorframe for support. "Is he going to be all right? Doctor says he will heal, but it will take time. Cole sent me to fetch you if you are willing to come. He is pretty insistent about seeing you." Molly did not hesitate. "Give me 10 minutes to pack." Mrs. Henderson was already moving. "I will get food together for the journey. You take my good travel bag. And Molly, that man sent someone 300 miles just to fetch you. That tells you everything you need to know about his intentions." The ride to Abilene took 4 days. The young cowboy, whose name was Sam, was respectful and quiet, pushing hard but not dangerously. They stopped at way stations and small towns, sleeping rough some nights when no accommodations could be found. Molly did not care about the discomfort. All she could think about was Cole hurt, asking for her. The guilt ate at her. This was exactly what she had feared, caring about someone only to have tragedy strike. Maybe she really was cursed. Maybe everyone who got close to her was doomed to suffer. "He is going to be all right," Sam said on the third day, as if reading her thoughts. "Cole is tough, and he has got something to live for now. Talks about you constantly, drives the crew half crazy with it." "He talks about me?" Molly asked, surprised. "All the time. Says you are the bravest person he knows. Says you helped him remember what it feels like to want something more than just surviving day to day." Sam grinned. "Red threatened to gag him if he mentioned you one more time during night watch." Despite her worry, Molly felt warmth bloom in her chest. Cole had not forgotten her. He had not changed his mind. He was hurt, but he wanted her there. They reached Abilene at sunset on the fourth day. Sam led her to a small boarding house where the crew had taken rooms. Red met them at the door, his weathered face breaking into a smile when he saw Molly. "Miss Warren, thank God. Cole has been impossible, demanding we fetch you, threatening to get up and ride to Independence himself if we did not." He gestured up the stairs. "He is in the front room. Doctor says the leg will heal clean, but he cannot ride for at least 6 weeks." Molly climbed the stairs with her heart pounding. She knocked softly on the door, heard Cole's voice call out, "Come in." He was propped up in bed, his left leg splinted and wrapped, his face drawn with pain but lighting up when he saw her. "Molly, you came." She crossed the room and sat carefully on the edge of the bed, her eyes scanning him for injuries. "Of course I came. Did you think I would not?" "I was not sure. I know you have got reasons to avoid caring about people to protect yourself. I thought maybe this would be the final proof that I am too much trouble." Molly took his hand, gripping it tightly. "Cole Zimmerman, you listen to me. You getting hurt is not my fault, and it does not change anything between us. I have spent weeks terrified that you would realize I am not worth the effort. It never occurred to me that you might be thinking the same thing." Cole laughed, then winced at the movement. "We are quite a pair, are not we? Both so convinced we are not enough." "Maybe we are exactly enough," Molly said. "Together." He pulled her down gently and she settled beside him, careful of his injury. They stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, letting the fear of loss settle into relief. "Tell me what happened," Molly said eventually. Cole described the stampede, the lightning that spooked the cattle, his attempt to turn the herd before they ran off a steep embankment. His horse had gone down, and Cole had been caught beneath it briefly before the crew pulled him free. "Stupid mistake," he said ruefully. "I should have known better. But all I could think about when I was lying there was that I might not see you again, that I had finally found someone who mattered, and I was going to lose it all because of one careless moment." "You did not lose me," Molly said firmly. "I am right here, and I am not going anywhere." They spent the evening talking, catching up on the lost weeks. Molly told him about confronting the gossiping women, and Cole laughed with genuine delight. "I wish I could have seen their faces. You are stronger than you give yourself credit for." "I am learning," Molly admitted. "You help me see that I do not have to accept other people's versions of who I am." Over the next 6 weeks, Molly stayed in Abilene, nursing Cole back to health. She found work at a local restaurant to pay for her room and board, spending every spare moment with Cole. The crew came and went, taking the cattle to market and then starting the journey back to the rocking Z Ranch. They promised to tell everyone that Cole was healing and would be home soon. During those weeks, Molly and Cole learned each other in ways that went far deeper than their brief time in Independence. She learned that he was impatient with his own limitations, that he hated being dependent on others, that he had nightmares about his father's death that left him shaken and quiet. He learned that she still woke up smelling smoke sometimes, that she had panic attacks when men raised their voices, that she carried guilt about her parents' deaths that no amount of logic could dispel. But they also learned that they could hold each other through the hard moments. That sharing wounds did not make you weaker but stronger. That love, and Molly was beginning to recognize it, as love was not about two perfect people finding each other, but about two broken people choosing to heal together. "Marry me," Cole said one evening as they sat watching the sunset from the boarding house porch. His leg was still splinted, but he was walking now with the aid of a crutch. Molly turned to him, shocked. "What, marry me?" he repeated. "I know it has only been a few months. I know we still have a lot to learn about each other. But I also know that I love you, Molly Warren. I love your strength and your honesty and the way you see the world. I love that you do not give up even when everything is telling you to quit. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing you that you are worth loving." Molly felt tears spilling down her face. "Cole, I do not know if I can be a good wife. I have so many broken pieces. What if I cannot give you what you need?" "You are already giving me what I need," Cole said gently. "You make me believe in something beyond just surviving. You make me want to build a life, not just maintain one." He reached out and wiped away her tears. "I am not asking you to be perfect. I am asking you to be my partner, to build something together that is ours, to take on the ranch and the land and whatever comes, side by side." "Yes," Molly whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." They married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the Abilene church. Red stood as Cole's witness, and the woman who ran the restaurant where Molly worked stood for her. It was nothing like the wedding Molly had imagined as a girl in Lexington, no fancy dress or crowds of guests. But it was real and honest, and when Cole said his vows with complete sincerity, Molly believed him. They traveled back to the rocking Z Ranch in a wagon, Cole's leg still healing. The ranch was nestled in rolling hills 50 miles south of Independence, with good water and grass that stretched as far as the eye could see. The house was modest, a sturdy 2-story structure built to withstand the harsh prairie weather. The hands came out to greet them, welcoming Molly with shy politeness. "Welcome home, Mrs. Zimmerman," Red said with a broad smile. Mrs. Zimmerman. The name felt foreign and wonderful all at once. The first weeks at the ranch were an adjustment. Molly had to learn the rhythms of ranch life, the endless work of feeding hands, managing the household, helping with the stock when needed. Cole was still recovering, frustrated by his limitations but trying to be patient. They had their first real fight when he tried to ride too soon, and Molly physically blocked him from the barn. "I cannot just sit around doing nothing," Cole snapped. "You are not doing nothing, you are healing," Molly shot back. "Or do you want to re-break that leg and be stuck for another 6 weeks?" They stood glaring at each other until Cole suddenly laughed. "We are fighting, like a real married couple." Molly felt her anger deflate. "I am sorry, I just do not want you to hurt yourself." "I know. And I am sorry for being stubborn." He pulled her close. "I am not used to having someone care if I push too hard." "Well, get used to it," Molly said, "because I am not going anywhere." As Cole healed, they fell into a rhythm. Molly discovered she had a talent for managing the ranch books, her careful attention to detail helping Cole see where they could improve efficiency. She also found that she loved working with the horses, the calm focus required to train them reminding her of days with her father. Cole watched her work with a young mare one afternoon, her voice soft and encouraging as she got the horse to accept a saddle. "You are a natural," he said. "My father taught me," Molly said. "Before the fire, I had forgotten how much I loved it." "Maybe we could expand that part of the operation," Cole suggested. "Breed horses as well as cattle. You could run it." The idea took root. Over the next months, they began building a horse breeding program, starting small with a few good mares and a quality stallion. Molly threw herself into the work, finding in it a connection to her past that felt healing rather than painful. She wrote down everything her father had taught her, all the knowledge she thought she had lost, and began applying it systematically. The ranch hands, initially wary of a woman in charge of anything, came to respect her quiet competence. She did not demand deference but earned it through her work and her willingness to learn from their experience. The nightmares still came sometimes. Molly would wake gasping, smelling smoke that was not there, and Cole would hold her until the panic passed. But they came less frequently now, the healing presence of the ranch and Cole's steady love acting like balm on old wounds. A year after their marriage, Molly realized she was pregnant. She told Cole one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the hills. "I am scared," she admitted after sharing the news. "What if something goes wrong? What if I cannot protect this baby like I could not protect my parents?" Cole took her hands in his. "Molly, what happened to your parents was not your fault. It was a tragedy, but it was not something you could have prevented. And this baby, we are going to protect it together. You are not alone in this. Promise me something," Molly said. "Promise me that if something happens to me, you will tell our child that I loved them, that I wanted them more than anything." "Nothing is going to happen to you," Cole said firmly. "But yes, I promise, though I expect you to be around to tell them yourself for many, many years." The pregnancy was difficult. Molly was sick constantly in the early months, and there were moments when she was convinced something was wrong. But Cole was patient, bringing her water and crackers, sitting with her through the hard nights. The ranch women, wives of the hands, rallied around her with advice and support, and Molly found herself part of a community in a way she had not expected. She gave birth on a cold January morning in 1877, with the ranch midwife attending and Cole pacing outside the bedroom door. It was long and painful, and there were moments when Molly was sure she could not do it. But then she heard the baby's cry, strong and healthy, and everything else fell away. "You have a son," the midwife said, placing the bundled infant in Molly's arms. Cole was allowed in then, and he stared at the baby with wonder and terror. "He is so small. He is perfect," Molly said, tears streaming down her face. "We made something perfect, Cole." They named him Joshua after Cole's father. He had Cole's dark hair and Molly's green eyes, and from the first moment, he had both of them wrapped completely around his tiny fingers. Molly had been terrified that motherhood would trigger her trauma, that she would be paralyzed by fear of losing this child. Instead, she found that loving Joshua opened something in her that had been locked away. Every time she held him, every time she nursed him or changed him or sang to him, she felt more whole. Not because he fixed her broken pieces, but because he gave her a reason to keep healing. Cole was a devoted father, rushing in from work at any excuse to hold his son. The hands teased him mercilessly, but he did not care. He would sit on the porch with Joshua for hours, talking to him about the ranch, about the land, about the family they were building. "You ever regret it?" Molly asked one night as they lay in bed, Joshua asleep in his cradle beside them. "Taking on someone as complicated as me?" Cole rolled to face her. "Never, not once. Molly, you gave me back my life. Before I met you, I was just going through motions, working the ranch because it was what I was supposed to do. But you made me remember what it feels like to actually live, to want things, to build something that matters. If anything, I am the one who should be asking if you regret settling for a simple cowboy." "You are not simple," Molly said, touching his face. "You are the most extraordinary man I have ever known. You saw past my scars and loved me anyway." You gave me a home and a family and a reason to believe in good things again. How could I possibly regret that? They made love then, slow and tender, a reaffirmation of everything they had built together. The years flowed by like the Missouri River, carrying them forward. Joshua grew into a sturdy, curious boy who followed his father around the ranch and learned about horses from his mother. When he was 3, Molly gave birth to twin girls, Emma and Grace, who had Cole's stubborn determination and Molly's quiet strength. The horse breeding program flourished. Molly's reputation for quality stock spread, and people came from hundreds of miles to buy her horses. She bred for temperament as well as conformation, producing animals known for being reliable and steady. It was profitable but also deeply satisfying, a way of honoring her father's legacy while building something entirely her own. Cole expanded the cattle operation, buying more land and improving the herd. The Rocking Z became one of the most respected ranches in Missouri, known for fair dealings and quality stock. Cole involved Molly in all major decisions, treating her as a true partner in a time when many men saw wives as property rather than equals. They had challenges. There were years when drought threatened the herd, when prices collapsed, when illness swept through, and they thought they might lose everything. But they faced each crisis together, drawing strength from their partnership. Molly's careful management of finances saw them through the lean times, and Cole's determination and hard work rebuilt what was lost. Joshua turned 12, the year Samuel Hastings came back into their lives. He was older now, his power and independence diminished by bad investments and worse luck. He showed up at the ranch demanding money, claiming Cole owed him from some ancient deal. Cole listened patiently, then shook his head. "I owe you nothing, Hastings, and you are not welcome here. Get off my land." "That woman of yours," Hastings sneered, looking at Molly. "She was mine first. I should have had her when I had the chance." Molly felt the old fear try to rise, but it was distant now, muted by years of healing. "I was never yours," she said clearly, "and I never will be. You should leave." Hastings started to argue, but Joshua stepped forward, young but tall for his age. "My mother asked you to leave. I think you should listen." Cole put a hand on his son's shoulder, pride evident in his face. Red and several other hands had drifted over, their presence a clear message. Hastings looked around, realized he was outnumbered and unwelcome, and left muttering threats that everyone knew he could not back up. After he was gone, Joshua turned to his parents. "Was he one of the men who hurt you, Ma? Before you met Pa?" Molly exchanged a look with Cole, then nodded. "Yes. But that was a long time ago, before I came here, before I found this family." "Did he hurt you bad?" Joshua asked, and Molly heard the protective anger in his voice. "He tried," Molly said honestly. "But your father stopped him, and I learned that I was stronger than I thought." "That is what I want you to understand, Joshua. People will try to hurt you in life, will try to make you feel small or broken or less than. But you get to decide who you are. You get to decide if you let those experiences define you or if you use them to become stronger." Joshua thought about that, then hugged her fiercely. "You are the strongest person I know, Ma. You and Pa both." Cole pulled them both close, and the twins came running over to join the embrace. Standing there surrounded by her family, on land that was hers, Molly felt the last piece of her broken heart finally heal. She would always carry the scars of that night in Lexington, would always remember her parents and the life she lost. But those scars were no longer wounds. They were part of her story, proof that she had survived and built something beautiful from the ashes. The children grew, each finding their own path. Joshua took over more of the cattle operation, showing his father's talent for the work. Emma became fascinated with the business side, learning from Molly how to manage accounts and negotiate deals. Grace discovered a talent for training horses that surpassed even her mother's, with an almost mystical ability to communicate with difficult animals. Cole and Molly grew old together, their hair graying, their hands weathering, but their love only deepening. They sat on the porch on summer evenings, watching grandchildren play in the yard, and marveled at the life they had built. "You remember that first day?" Molly asked one evening when she was 52 and Cole was 54. "When those men were shooting at me and you stepped in. I remember thinking you were the bravest person I had ever seen," Cole said. "Standing there, not breaking even though you were terrified." "I thought you were crazy," Molly admitted. "Who helps a stranger like that?" "Someone who recognizes a person worth helping," Cole said. He took her hand, their fingers interlacing with the ease of decades of practice. "You know what I think? I think we saved each other. You needed someone to see past your scars, and I needed someone to show me that life could be more than just duty and work. We did pretty well, didn't we?" Molly said, looking out at the ranch, at the life they had built. "We did better than well," Cole said. "We built something that will outlast us. This ranch, these children, the way we loved each other through everything. That is a legacy worth leaving." Molly leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of the setting sun on her face. The girl who had run from Lexington in shame and terror seemed like someone from another lifetime, someone she remembered but no longer fully recognized. That girl had been broken, convinced she was cursed, unable to imagine a future that did not involve pain. But that girl had also been strong enough to keep going. She had survived when she had every reason to give up. She had opened her heart to love when it would have been safer to stay closed off. She had chosen to heal instead of staying wounded, to build instead of hiding. And she had found a man who looked at her scars and saw beauty, who loved not despite her wounds but because of them, understanding that those scars were proof of survival, of courage, of a spirit that refused to be broken no matter what life threw at it. "I love you," Molly said quietly. "I never get tired of telling you that." "I love you too," Cole replied, "and I never get tired of hearing it." They sat together as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink and purple. Two people who had found each other in the chaos of the frontier and built something that would endure for generations. The ranch spread around them, living proof that even the deepest scars could heal if you found the right person to love them. Inside the house, they could hear the sounds of family gathering for dinner, Emma calling her children to wash up, Grace laughing at something her husband said, Joshua discussing cattle prices with one of the hands. The sounds of life continuing, of love multiplying, of a legacy that started with two broken people who chose to heal together. That night, after dinner and after all the children and grandchildren had gone to their homes, Cole and Molly lay in their bed, the room dark except for moonlight streaming through the window. "You have any regrets?" Cole asked softly. Molly thought about the question seriously. She thought about her parents, about the life she had lost, about the years of pain and fear. She thought about Thomas and the shame he had caused her, about running away and starting over with nothing. "No," she said finally. "I cannot regret the pain because it led me here to you, to this life. I wish my parents had lived, wish I could have introduced them to you and the children, but I cannot regret the path that brought me to this moment." "That is a good way to look at it," Cole said. "I feel the same about losing my father. I wish he could have met you, could have seen what we built. But losing him taught me not to take anything for granted, to appreciate what I have while I have it." "We were lucky," Molly said, "to find each other, to have all these years." "We were," Cole agreed. He pulled her closer and she settled against him with the comfort of long habit. "But it was not just luck. We worked for this. We chose each other every day, even on the hard days. That is what made it last. As Molly drifted off to sleep, safe in the arms of the man who had loved her scars and all, she thought about the girl who had whispered about being broken, who had been convinced that no one could love someone as damaged as she was. She wished she could go back and tell that girl that she was wrong, that the scars would not define her, that love was possible even when you thought you were beyond repair. But maybe that girl could not have heard it then. Maybe she had to walk through the fire, had to survive and suffer and finally decide that she was worth saving. Maybe Cole could only love her scars because she had first learned to accept them herself, to see them not as shame but as proof of survival. The years continued to pass. Cole and Molly celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. The Rocking Z Ranch was now run primarily by Joshua and his children, with Emma managing the business operations and Grace overseeing the horse breeding program that had become one of the most respected in the region. Cole's leg, broken so many years ago, troubled him in cold weather, but he still rode when he could, still checked on the herd, still took pride in the land he had stewarded for so long. Molly's hands were gnarled with arthritis, but she still worked with the horses, her presence calming even the most skittish animals. They talked often about the early days, telling stories to grandchildren who sat wide-eyed at tales of stampedes and broken legs, of gossips confronted and fresh starts made. The children loved hearing how their grandparents met, how their grandmother had been shot at and their grandfather had stepped in to help. "You were a hero, Grandpa," one of the little ones said during a family dinner. "No," Cole said firmly. "Your grandmother was the hero. I just had the good sense to recognize it." Molly reached across the table to squeeze his hand, her eyes bright with tears. Even after all these years, he could still make her feel seen, understood, loved in ways she had never thought possible. On a warm spring morning in 1897, when Molly was 67 and Cole was 69, they rode out together to a spot on the ranch they particularly loved, a rise overlooking the river where they could see for miles in every direction. It was where Cole had first told her he wanted to build a life with her, where they had made so many plans and decisions over the years. They sat on a blanket, leaning against each other, watching the land they had devoted their lives to maintaining and improving. "If I could go back," Molly said suddenly, "and tell that terrified girl in Independence what was waiting for her, I do not think she would believe me, that she could be this happy, this whole." "I think she would," Cole said. "I think she had the strength in her all along. She just needed someone to reflect it back to her, to show her what I saw from the first moment." "What did you see?" Molly asked, even though she had asked the question 100 times over the years and knew the answer. "I saw a survivor," Cole said. "I saw someone who had every reason to quit but kept going anyway. I saw courage and strength and a heart big enough to hold pain and still have room for love." He turned to look at her directly. "I saw the woman I wanted to spend my life with." Molly kissed him, a soft press of lips that held 40 years of mornings waking up together, of challenges faced and overcome, of children raised and grandchildren loved. When they pulled apart, she rested her forehead against his. "I have scars you cannot see," she whispered, the echo of words spoken so long ago. Cole smiled, completing the exchange that had defined their relationship from the beginning. "Then I'll love what others missed." They sat together as the sun climbed higher. Two people who had found each other in the rough chaos of the frontier and built something that would last long after they were gone. Around them, the ranch hummed with live cattle grazing, horses running, family working together to maintain what had been built over decades of dedication. It was not the ending Molly had imagined as a young girl in Kentucky, dreaming of a conventional life with a conventional love. It was better than that. It was real and earned and rooted in the deep understanding that love was not about perfection, but about choosing each other through the imperfect, difficult, beautiful mess of life. Years later, when both Cole and Molly had passed peacefully in their sleep within months of each other, the family gathered at the ranch to celebrate their lives. The children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren shared stories, passing down the legacy of two people who had found each other against all odds. Joshua, now an old man himself, stood to speak at the memorial. "My parents taught me that scars are not weaknesses," he said, his voice strong despite his age. "They taught me that surviving hardship makes you stronger, not lesser. My mother came from tragedy, and my father saw her not as broken but as beautiful in her strength. They built this ranch, this family, this legacy on the foundation of accepting each other completely, scars and all." Emma added, "They showed us what real love looks like. Not the easy kind that only exists when things are perfect, but the hard-earned kind that chooses commitment every single day, through drought and plenty, through sickness and health, through every challenge life throws at you." Grace spoke last. "Grandma used to tell me that the horses she trained, they all came to her with something broken, wild spirits, bad training, trauma from poor treatment. But she never saw them as damaged goods. She saw potential, saw what they could become with patience and love. That is how Grandpa saw her, and that is how they saw all of us. They taught us to look past the surface, to see the strength in survival, to love the whole person, scars and all." The family spread Molly and Cole's ashes together on that rise overlooking the river, in the spot where they had spent so many quiet moments throughout their long life together. The grandchildren planted a pair of oak trees there, so that something living would mark the place where two people had found healing and love. The Rocking Z Ranch continued for generations, each inheritor adding their own chapter while honoring the foundation laid by Cole and Molly Zimmerman. The story of how they met, how a cowboy saw past a woman's scars to the strength beneath, became family legend, passed down to teach future generations about the transformative power of love that accepts without condition. In the family Bible, carefully preserved and passed down, someone had written the words that defined Cole and Molly's relationship, the exchange that started everything. "I have scars you cannot see," she whispered. "Then I'll love what others missed," he replied. And beneath it, added by a grandchild years later, "They taught us that being broken is not the end of the story. It can be the beginning of something beautiful, if you find someone who sees your scars as proof of your strength rather than evidence of your weakness." They showed us that love is not about two perfect people finding each other, but about two imperfect people refusing to give up on each other. The words stood as testament to a love that had transformed two wounded souls into a partnership that built something lasting. They reminded future generations that the deepest scars often yield the strongest hearts, and that true love sees past the damage to the unbreakable spirit underneath. On the ranch, life continued its endless cycle. Children were born and raised, horses were trained, cattle were tended, and the land was cared for with the same dedication Cole and Molly had shown. The values they instilled: hard work, compassion, seeing strength in survival, loving without condition, became the bedrock of a family legacy that would endure for generations. And somewhere, in the whisper of wind through the oak trees on that rise overlooking the river, in the sound of horses nickering in the barn Molly had built, in the laughter of children playing in the house Cole had maintained, their love continued. Not as ghosts or spirits, but as the foundation upon which everything else was built, the proof that even the deepest wounds could heal when met with patience, acceptance, and a love brave enough to see beauty in survival. The story of Cole and Molly Zimmerman became more than just family history. It became a reminder that the Wild West was not just about cattle drives and frontier justice, but about ordinary people finding extraordinary love in the midst of hardship. It taught that scars, whether visible or hidden, were not things to be ashamed of but proof of battles fought and survived. It showed that the truest form of love was not the easy kind that only existed in good times, but the committed kind that chose partnership through everything life could throw at you. And in the end, that was the real legacy they left behind, not just a successful ranch or a large family, but the understanding that being seen, truly seen and accepted for everything you are, including the broken parts, was the greatest gift one person could give another. That love, real love, did not demand perfection. It simply asked that you keep showing up, keep choosing each other, keep building something together one day at a time. The sun set over the rocking Z Ranch as it had for decades, painting the sky in brilliant colors. The land stretched out green and endless, home to generations of family who carried Cole and Molly's love forward. And if you listened closely, you could almost hear the echo of that first exchange, the words that changed everything. "I have scars you cannot see. Then I'll love what others missed." Those words had built a legacy. They had healed two wounded hearts and created a family that would endure. They had proven that the Wild West, for all its hardship and danger, could also be a place where broken people found wholeness, where love conquered fear, and where two souls could build something beautiful from the ashes of their pasts. The story ended not with a dramatic flourish, but with the quiet contentment of a life well lived, a love well tended, and a legacy well earned. Cole and Molly Zimmerman had taken their scars and turned them into strength, had taken their pain and transformed it into purpose, had taken their individual brokenness and forged it into a partnership that would inspire generations. And that, in the end, was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.